What's up, guys? This is Cop Customs. Thanks for coming to my channel. Subscribe. It's a brand new channel. I have 0 subscribers, so help me get off the ground. And this is going to be a very simplistic video. I think I'm going to try to do that for most of my videos. Very little editing or no editing, and just me talking to you and showing you something. So if I goof up, it stays in. So here's my Cyclops Marvel Legends Jim Lee style custom. This is the Warlock Wave Cyclops, and what I did was it's a shame that Hasbro never made a Optic Blast for the Cyclops. He just comes by himself with no accessories, which is kind of dumb. I always didn't understand why for their Star Wars line they can come out with soft goods, accessories, and all this stuff, but for Marvel Legends it's like they don't want to experiment with soft goods for some reason. But anyways, that's beside the point. We're talking about accessories. So for my Cyclops, to get him to have an Optic Blast, I came up with this idea. Now the downside is that he's always going to have this spark plug in the middle of his visor. The reason why is to cover up a hole that I drilled in the middle of his head. Now he literally looks like a Cyclops. If I take that off, he looks like a Harryhausen Cyclops or something like that. But this plugs right in, and this little thing I crafted from a Figma Genome Soldier from Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. This came as a little plug that goes into the Genome Soldier's eyes when he gets surprised and sees Snake. I painted it red with Tester's Model Master Enamel Metallic Red, and then I put a little flat white in the middle, and then I covered it again with another gloss to give it a kind of three-dimensional look. So that plugs in it all the time. Now if you don't have that Figma figure and you want to make one of these, I suppose you can take a paper clip, okay? You can take a paper clip, snip it into a tiny little piece like that, or a little bit longer, as long as you want to drill, as far as you want to drill into Cyclops' head. And then this you could probably craft with some hot glue, and then you could use any kind of red paint. Acrylic. Don't use enamel on hot glue. You have to use acrylic. But this is hard plastic, so I used enamel. And now this hole enables me to put these Optic Blasts inside there. This one I made, and this one I made, well, I modified. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But in order for his head to hold up these Cyclops, these Optic Blasts is, okay, let me show you. You would think it's going to knock him over, or it's too heavy, but it's actually not. He balances really well with it. For the sake of not having to turn around this camera, I'm just going to have to take this kind of shot. Okay? He's leaning back a little bit, but look, I can put him in a pose. Real quick. And he stays up perfectly fine, and he's standing straight. Okay, in order to get his head not to move and hold up this weight, what I did, took off his head, and I used a risky method. You don't have to do it this way, but I did it this way. I took super glue. Okay, I've learned how to do this when I was doing Star Wars customs to tighten joints. I just put a little tiny drop of super glue in the side of that crack, move it back and forth really quick, keep moving it back and forth, keep moving it back and forth, don't let it set. And then eventually, after about like 1 or 2 minutes of moving it, it gets a lot tighter. And then I did the same to the other side, did it again, went back. Plus, if you notice, his head is kind of misty looking, the peg. I covered that with drops of super glue. Then I sprinkled a little baking soda on. And then I put another drop of super glue. Then I sprinkled some baking soda on. And then I took some sandpaper and just sanded down. Test it, put it back on, see if it's tight enough, see how tight you want to get it. And you just mess around with this sandpaper, baking soda, and super glue till you get it to the right size to where it's nice and tight. So now this head can hold up a lot of weight. This now to drill the hole, I have a hand drill. You're going to need one of these if you want to drill anything in your figures. Okay, this is your basic hand drill. You can get off eBay for, I don't know, $8, $10, shipped from the United States or from China. It's you know, just a ratcheting clamp there, and ordered a whole bunch of these different size drills. Okay, these are micro drills, 0.4 millimeters, 0.7 millimeters, 0.9, all the way up to 10. And then I have a variety of other sizes. So what I did was I matched the drill bit to the size of a paper clip. Okay, this is a paper clip. Really strong metal, very hard to bend if it's in small pieces. Very strong, perfect for this kind of job. So this Optic Blast, let me tell you how I made this. What I did was I took packaging plastic, you know, the window, from your window boxes, from your figure packaging, or any kind of packaging. You just take a really good piece of plastic. I took a marker and a ruler, Sharpie, you know, traced out the basic shape of the outline, you know, the big shape. I cut it with a razor carefully, trimmed it a little bit with scissors, shaved it again, all the little imperfections, and as well as I could. And then I took alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and some cotton, and just rubbed off the Sharpie. It comes off really easily with alcohol. And then I made the next layer and the next layer on both sides. And to glue them on, it's tricky because you can't use super glue if you want it to look nice and clean on clear plastic. So what I did was I bought some double-sided sticky tape, Scotch double-sided tape, which is cheap. It's like $3, something like that. And I carefully put it on one piece without trying to get too many fingerprints on there. Then I just cut around the edge, put it on. Okay, on both sides. That's all I did with the double-sided sticky tape. And then the same paint I used for that plug, for this little plug, that's metallic red. First I painted white right here, just for that, just to bring out a little bit of highlight on where the base is, where it's shooting out. And then I covered that all with metallic red. Only about one or two, I think 2 layers I put on this. And for the middle, when I created the first piece, I cut a little notch to fit that paper clip inside. Then after I put the layers on, oh, and I also cut out these layers separately and glued them on. Sanded them down, you know, with the same thing, super glue and baking soda. It's the best thing for crafting stuff from scratch and gluing it together when it comes to plastic. But you don't want to use super glue up here because it's too visible. Anyways, then I use the same thing, the drill, to drill a hole in here. I already had the notch cut out, so I just kind of smoothed out the other pieces, put that in there, use glue to keep it in, super glue, and it sticks in perfectly. Okay, well, I already showed you that, so on to the next piece. This I got from the dollar store. I found it in a dollar store, and it's not in every dollar store. It's just a light wand, a flashing LED light wand. I've been looking at a lot of dollar stores. I only found this in one of them, so it's kind of hard to find. Originally, when I got it, it had like 5 different flashing sequences. There, now it's working. For some reason, after I sanded it and painted it, it's finicky now. It doesn't want to do all the sequences every time I push this button, but it's working for the camera, luckily, right now. So you have different options for Cyclops to flash. This is a red light. This is a purple light. This is a blue light, and this is a green light. You can't really see it like that, though, once it's on. It pretty much all you see is red and red, which is great. You barely see the ones in the middle. And flashing like this, you don't even notice, really. It looks great. So again, this originally had a lanyard on it. All I did was sand it down, paint it, same thing, metallic red, enamel, Testors Model Masters enamel, metallic red light. And this had a hole in the end, right here. I used this stuff called Plastiloca. This is sold in Mexico, and I believe the closest thing to it in the United States is Milliput. I don't know how good it is because I haven't used it, but I know this stuff. I've heard of Milliput cracking up and stuff when you mix it. This stuff does not have that problem. When you use water, you know, you have wet fingers, and it's basically like molding clay when it's in working phase. So I just filled in the little hole that they had for the milliput, or sorry, for the lanyard right here. You know, you can kind of barely see it. When it lights up, you can see where I put the Plastiloca in there. But like that, you know, you take a picture like that, you can't see it. And for the peg, just take that drill with patience. Use a smaller drill bit first. This plastic is really hard to drill through. I used a small bit and it broke off inside there, which happens sometimes. Luckily I carved out the back and I was able to pull it out with some tweezers, and then I started again with the bigger bit and got this in there, and it works perfectly fine. This also, even though it's a little heavier, it's a little tricky, but Cyclops can also even hold this thing up by himself without the assistance of a stand. I'm gonna have to add some sculpting to his neck peg here because it's getting a little shaky. There you go. And I couldn't believe how many likes I got on Instagram from showing how I did this. This is actually not this was kind of the more easy part, was making this beam. The hardest part was finding a piece like that. I was going to use test tubes, plastic test tubes, and then put an LED inside and paint them and make them somehow removable, make the LED removable and make it so that it opens up, and while still making it look streamlined. So I didn't have to do that. I ended up finding this piece instead. So that's my review. For paint, of course, yeah, this guy, everything else besides the Optic Blast, what I did with him was rubbed him down with magic eraser and rubbing alcohol, which is what I always do before I prep, to prep any action figure before I paint it. Okay, that takes off the mold release, which makes your paint bead up. When you try to put paint on it, it just beads up and doesn't want to stick to the plastic. So use a magic eraser and some rubbing alcohol. On eBay you can get magic erasers really cheap. Just look for melamine sponge. They're called melamine sponges, generic. And I shortened his waistband, his shoulder strap. It used to be way down here by his crotch, but as you know, Cyclops usually has his waist, his belt up above his shorts, up above his briefs there. So I made it look like that. What I did with that is, again, I cut off this completely. Cut it off. Inside there, I used my drill again with a smaller tiny bit to drill inside there, and I have these smaller floral wires. I cut 2 strips of floral wire and glued them in, both sides, drilled the hole down here, drilled the hole up there, and attached it back on, painted over it, and you don't even notice that I cut it. But it makes it sit a lot better on his waist. I kind of repaired that X so it sits a little more in the middle too, by cutting that off and putting it back on. As you can see, I put a wash on it, a dark blue wash, buffed it out with the magic eraser, and then I decided to go back and dry brush it all to kind of make it a little more light and not look so dirty. So I think it came out pretty well. Painted, you know, gold highlights on his buckles, painted the buttons on his belt. I glued down all these parts that move, of course. Turned out pretty good. Oh, and face detail and lips there. He's actually got lips. It makes a big difference on your Marvel Legends if you just paint the lips. It looks so much better. And I think that's about it. I covered everything. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.